Hi guys, sorry, I don't know what happened there. I'm gonna try and see if I can get Nicole back on, but I think I just lost everything I did. Oh my god, I lost it. I don't know what happened. My phone just went off. Oh no. Hi, thank you for joining us. Nicole, I'm gonna wait for Nicole to join back on. I know some of you had questions, but you have to type your questions again. And hopefully Nicole can join. How's everyone doing? In the meantime, while I'm waiting for Nicole to join, how is everyone doing? Unfortunately, I lost the video that we just did a while ago. Like, my phone just went off and I lost it. I can't believe this. I lost it. Nicole. I hope she can join. Where is she? She's not here now. I'm upset. I can't believe I lost that video. I lost it, so we'll have to start this over again. Oh no. This is very upsetting. Why Nicole isn't here yet? Can you talk about your adoption area? Yes, of course. Why Nicole is here? That's a great question. So like I was saying, for me personally, my plan in the future is to adopt. And I think the reason for that, although I know there's like 5 to 10% of chance of getting pregnant, I've actually made a decision for myself to adopt instead of trying to use my eggs or use a donor. I just rather adopt a child. Because there's so many child out there that needs a home to be at and to be cared for and loved. So I'm just going to go that route for myself. And that's kind of something I'm looking into in the future. Right now, I'm trying to kind of get myself together, so just to be able to provide for a child. So, and hold on, I think Nicole is here now. So with the adoption, I don't have much in-depth there she is. Hi Nicole, can you send me an invite? There we go. There she is. I think she's coming on now. Nicole, guess what happened? I lost the video.
Oh no!
I lost everything.
Oh no!
Yeah. My phone just went off. I don't know what happened, and it's just
I'm so
went.
sorry. I
Yeah,
wasn't sure if it was me or not, and it just kept loading your page, and I was like, I have no idea if I'm frozen or what's happening.
yeah. I don't know how. I hope you don't have any plans for the rest of the evening because we have to do that again. Hope you don't have any plans. Do you have any plans?
The
No.
only thing I had was my mother was coming over and we were gonna bake cookies, so
Yeah.
there's no like rush on that. So
Okay.
I think
Okay.
she's very understanding.
Okay, so we'll just start over again because we want to have a content to share with the people who's not live today. So
Right,
let's start
right.
over again, Nicole. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your POI journey and your POI journey
No
so far?
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, no problem. That's a bummer that it didn't save or anything.
it didn't save. I tried to save it. It says I can't download. It says I cannot download the video, and I tried to share. It say your video has to be at least more than 1 minute long. So that means the first video did not save at all. Yeah, it's a shame.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for those who are joining right now and rejoining us. We're gonna kind of go back a little bit on what we talked about at the beginning,
yeah.
because a video kind of messed up and didn't save, so we apologize. So thank you for those of us who are rejoining again.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
As we have a few, so thank you for those who have joined. I'm Nicole. I was diagnosed with POI back in early July. I was diagnosed when after I was referred to someone from my primary doctor after seeing her with some issues and talking to her about how I hadn't had my period in quite a few months at the time, and that my husband and I were actively trying and wanting to have children, and it had been a little while since we'd started trying. So she had a couple tests done, and it came back and it told me that my estrogen was low, but at the time, like, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that was a huge deal. I didn't realize what I guess the severity of that was when it came back to telling me I had low estrogen. And it wasn't until I finally kind of decided that, okay, I should go see that person she recommended me to go see to kind of get things done. I had not had my period for quite a few months prior, and I didn't think too much of it, knowing that I was doing a little bit more exercise because like I had mentioned previously, my coworker had somehow gotten me to do a half marathon with her. And
Yeah.
if everyone who knows me, like coming from high school, is like I was not the person who ran.
Yeah.
I was the person who had issues with running, and I was able to get out of running quite a few times in my gym class, where she allowed me to do on the elliptical because I couldn't do it. It was just very rough. And now getting to that, but knowing that like the excessive running and stuff also plays a part on your cycle and everything, I kind of just pushed it off to that. And I was like, oh, it's probably related to that or whatever. But when I saw my primary, she's like, I don't think it's related, because you were kind of as you were telling me, it's kind of started a little bit before that.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a couple tests, and then I'm going to recommend you to go to see someone else. So I'm like, okay. And then I kind of like went about my time, and I was like, I was at the point where we were close to actually running the half marathon. So I was like, I'll just finish that out because we've gotten so close. And then after that, I just kind of like didn't do anything with it. And I
Yeah.
think in the back of my mind, like subconsciously, I didn't want to take that next step to know if something
Yes.
could be wrong or would be wrong, because I think I was just kind of probably scared of what might happen, what would come
Yeah.
out of it, because knowing
That's
we were trying
understandable.
and things weren't happening and the difficulty I would have. But after speaking with another very close friend of mine and actually my husband's cousin, they're like, well, you probably should get that looked at, or you probably should go in. I'm like, okay. And I finally made an appointment, and when I had went in there, the doctor who I saw was I feel very knowledgeable and very helpful, where this is my first time seeing her, and after looking over some of the information that she received from my previous doctor and the results, she's like, I am fairly certain in diagnosing you with POI. And I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
And she kind of went over the general synopsis of what it is, and then also what that meant for my fertility, because she knew that we were working on trying to grow our family.
Yeah.
And she threw the big, I don't want to call it a big bomb, but just saying, like, you will most likely have to do donor eggs because of what's going on with POI. You're not always ovulating. You have women with POI, they have about a 5 to 10% chance of even conceiving naturally. So it'll most likely have to go to donor eggs. So that was quite a bit to process.
Yeah.
But right after that, I did a little bit of research on REIs in my area, reproductive endocrinologist, and I got referred over to that clinic, which was the one I actually wanted to go to. I was interested in looking at, which is great, and got connected with one of the doctors, and they set up a bunch of tests, and he pretty much told me we're gonna most likely have to do donor eggs. We wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend putting you through IVF with your own eggs, but after talking with him more, I feel like he did listen. Like he's very knowledgeable
That's good.
and understanding of like, okay, this is the reality kind of what's going on. But knowing what you also need to go through and what you need to process, we're going to do this for closure pretty much,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is also kind of hard, kind of like processing that, knowing that like I'm doing this just for the fact of it failing,
Yeah.
knowing
Better.
that it's most likely going to fail, which is kind of hard. So I've been trying to like not let myself get too hopeful over
Yeah.
it. But in the process as well, we're getting all this information. I started HRT at the end of July, or I don't know, I think August. I wasn't sure how HRT would affect me. So my family and I had planned a normal, like our trip, we were going to the Grand Canyon. I was like, I'm not going to start it right before this. I don't know what's going to do. And like, I was very worried about
Yeah.
starting it beforehand because I'm like, if I'm just starting something brand new, I have
It's
no
not what
idea
to
what this
expect.
might affect me.
Yeah.
And being in an RV for a week with my family and my husband, I'm like, I don't want to like cut someone's head off because I'm like somewhere else. I'm like, I'll just wait. But it wasn't. I had nothing to worry about. I just didn't know how I would respond to it. But when we got back, I started it, and I noticed that it helped me quite a bit.
Yeah.
And with it's estradiol and then progesterone that I take 12 days out of the month, and it actually helped get my cycle back, which was really nice. I say nice and like take that with a grain of salt because it's not comfortable to hit your cycle. Every woman knows that. But like I was grateful that it came back. For me, that was a good sign, knowing like, okay, my body's starting to do what it's supposed to do, that this is a good thing for my fertility, of what it means of, you know, wanting to have our kids. It definitely came back with a vengeance. When it came back, I was like, this is hitting me hard with cramps. I'm pretty sure I had some other symptoms that I don't feel like I normally had in the past. Like I had really bad cramps for a couple days, where in the past when I've had it, like I had some cramps, but I don't feel like they were too crazy. I'm like, I was able to go out and do whatever I needed. But the first 2 days coming, like with this first time coming back, it really like hit hard, and I was like, whoa, okay, all right, you're gonna take me out for the count. And then like I even had like tenderness in my chest, and I was like, that's something I don't think I've really had to deal with before. I'm like, so it's telling me my body's actually doing what it's supposed to now. I'm getting these things that I don't want but are good.
I think that the breast tenderness is probably one of the side effects of HRT. Like it's just so soft. Like for me personally, I can't lie on my bed like flat. Because the breast is just so tender and very sensitive. Like that's one of the things for me that's just I'm just like, ugh. And for me personally, like I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure. It was called premature ovarian failure when I was diagnosed back 11 years ago. And I remember the first time that I had my first period at 15. So you could say I was a late bloomer. And then I had the period for like four or 5 days, and it stopped. And I didn't get anything after that. So I remember actually, speaking to a family member then, and they told me, oh, no, it's okay. It's some people get it very late. It's fine. So I didn't get a period at the age of 16, 17, 18. Like I had no period for years straight. And when I met a friend, and she was like, that's not normal. You should be getting your period. You need to go see somebody about that. Because I was just willing to kind of just go about my life, because I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm sure it's going to come when it's ready to come. So I remember going to the GP, and then the GP did some blood work and everything, and then he referred me to a gyno. So I waited for an appointment for like a few months. And my first appointment with the gyno, like that was unexpected. I was not expecting them to do the physical exam on the first day, because I remember lying there with my legs wide open, and everyone's just staring down my vagina. I was like, oh my God, what is going on? Imagine that on the first day, unexpected. And you see random people just standing there. That was one thing I was not expecting. Then after that, I came back for the results a few weeks later, and then I was told that, Anita, you have what's called premature ovarian failure. And I was like, what is that? And they told me premature ovarian failure, and it affects your infertility, and it also affects your mental health and your physical health and a lot of other things. Just like you said, like you were very well informed, and about your what POI is and everything. For me, I wasn't really well informed. Like I had no idea for a long time, and I had to go do my own research then. Go home and do my research and watch it. And I was told you need to start HRT, hormone replacement therapy. It's supposed to help protect you, provide estrogen and stuff. Like I didn't even know about estrogen or progesterone the first day. These are things I have to find out myself. So which I think, I hope that has actually like changed and improved, that now people are more informed when they actually do get diagnosed. So I started HRT right away. So I've been on HRT for 11 years. I started with the HRT, the Avon patch, and I was on that for like a few years. And then I had to stop because the side effects on the patch was just crazy. It was just too much for me. And the patch was kind of inconvenient for me in terms of like when it comes to like was always coming off or things like that. And when it came to having showers, I was like, okay, I need to change that. And then I changed over to the Featherstone County 1x5, which is the combined. It has estrogen and progesterone. So I was on that for like 8 years and it was perfect. But I decided to change it over last year because I noticed that some of my symptoms were coming back in terms of hot flashes, sore back, achy body, and things. So I went on the Femestone 2x10, and I didn't know initially when I started the Femestone 2x10 that it was progesterone and estrogen broken into two, because I thought it was the combined. That was actually the first time, because previously throughout the years on the HRT combined that I was on, I would say I only got withdrawal bleeding maybe like 3 or 4 times a year, and that was it. But when I went on the Femestone 2x10, that was the first time I actually experienced withdrawal bleeding on a monthly basis. And at first I was like, what is going on? Why am I bleeding monthly? What is actually going on? I didn't realize that the Femestone County 2x10 is broken down and you're supposed to have periods, like withdrawal bleeding. Well, it's not called period because I used to think it was called period, but apparently it's called withdrawal bleeding. It's not actual period. You're not having actual period, like based on what's been said to me. So when you said that, it's helping your cycle to come back, were you ever told by the specialist that it's actually called withdrawal bleeding, not your actual, like, not natural periods? Is that something that was, yeah? Because
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah. So that's kind of like something I think it's very confusing for a lot of people. Some people think it's like natural periods, and some they actually say no, it's not natural periods. It's actually like withdrawal bleeding because it's it's
realize that.
So, I think So for me, when I started, I was very excited. I was like, oh yeah, my period is back. Oh yes, because I got so excited. That means I can have kids. I can do this and that. You know what I mean? But I've learned along the way that that's not the case. That's actually not the case at all. So right now I'm actually back on the Femestone County 1x5, and it's okay so far. I think I've kind of been in like different HRT for a long time now. So I think I'm still trying to figure out what works for me or what's best for me. And some of the symptoms I kind of experienced before I was diagnosed, actually thinking about it now, is I was a very moody child. Like I was very moody. And then I didn't know that, this was one of the symptoms of PO. I didn't even know what PO is. I was very moody. And I can say hot flashes as well, because I used to get hot flashes. But, you never actually think about things like this to be, because you're a child and you're like just going about your life. You don't know what's going on. So that was one of the other things as well. And the vagina, we talked about the vagina dryness before the video went off. We talked about vagina dryness being like a major thing. A major thing, trying to have intercourse. And like when I remember the first time I had intercourse, it was really, really, really sore for me. Like I was very sore and I didn't understand why I was sore, because like virginity and whatever. But after that, you notice you're very sore and things like that. So I didn't know that was one of the other reason why as well too. So, but and so can you like, it is
a big thing. And I'm kind of just laughing because just myself, like, we're just openly, like, I'm only just kind of talking about these things right now out here. And I'm like, I don't feel like I would normally do that. But yeah, the dryness, and then even just the low lability, and then like painfulness, it's such a huge deal, especially when you, not even in the context of like you're trying to grow your family, you're trying to have kids, but even like in your teenage years and growing up, it's such a huge deal. You're thinking like, okay, is it just me? What's wrong with me? There's something going on. Like this, like everyone else seems like they're having a great time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not experiencing the same thing here.
Exactly. I mean, you start to think that, there must be something wrong with you, like what is actually going on, you're doing something wrong, but you don't actually realize that, you're actually going through something else that's more than that. Right. And one other thing that I came to realize along the way is that when we talk about POI, we talk about infertility, and infertility is like the big part, like a huge part of it. But I've come to learn that, like my mental health is also very important, my physical health and stuff. Those are a lot of things that I took for granted for a long time ago. And I've actually come to learn that those things are actually important because, for me, this is the way I think about it. I feel like if you don't take care of your mental and your physical health, then and then you're trying to improve the infertility, it's not going to work because they have to come
Right.
together. You need to, you need
Right.
to equally look after yourself for both of them to come
It's
together.
really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, it
I didn't
is.
think too much of it beforehand, but now that like we've been talking, as long as we have, I've been thinking about it a little bit more of like there are points where I feel like I was just upset or like having anxiety or almost feeling like I was dealing with depression. I know I got to a point, I want to say like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, where like I had gone to my doctor and I was like ready to the point of like, can you help me with this? Like, I think I might actually want to discuss going on like some type of medication or something for this
Yeah,
because it's getting bad. And then like I found a really good probiotic that definitely kind of helped with things. But then on top of like with everything else, I feel like that was probably a huge part of it as well
yeah,
with dealing with our emotions and with coming with POI that probably had a big connection to it. And the more I've been reading, the more I've been researching, like the more I'm finding is there are pieces that are connecting that make a whole lot more sense now about
yes.
a lot of the things that I was dealing with and going through.
Yeah, it comes together and just connects because you and then because when things are happening, you think you're going crazy then, but when you
Yeah.
start to like do more research, things starts to connect for you and you kind of. So tell us a little bit like about your like IVF journey. How is that going so far? Like,
Yes. Okay. So I also want to just say hi for those who have now just
yes,
joined us, new people. If you have any questions, please comment, let us know, and we can answer your questions.
definitely.
Pretty much as soon as I got diagnosed, the doctor who diagnosed me, she's like, we're gonna run a couple more tests just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that this is what it is.
Yeah,
So she ran a couple more tests. I came back and started. She's like, this is what it is. I want you to start HRT. This is why, yada yada yada. And I'm like, okay, what does this
yeah,
mean for me wanting to start a family with my husband? And so she kind of went through the whole thing of like, you're most likely going to have to use donor eggs because women with POI, you don't always ovulate. You have a 5 to 10% chance of conceiving
yes,
naturally. So we went immediately to see the REI, the reproductive endocrinologist,
yeah,
and spoke with them and kind of figure out what is our next piece here. And essentially, he wanted us to go straight to donor egg IVF. And after talking more about it, we weren't comfortable to take that next step just yet.
yeah,
So we are going to do our probably one and only IVF cycle with my own eggs, going in knowing that it is still such a very low chance of it succeeding,
yeah,
especially within regards to retrieving eggs
yeah,
and retrieving any at all, or if they do retrieve any, of how if they will make it to the I believe the blastocyst stage enough to make it to transfer. So also he went through the fact of like remember at any point like we're going to be doing this your with your eggs, but at any point things could be stopped. Like if we don't have enough eggs, we don't see enough, we might not do the transfer, or we may not even get to the retrieval stage. So kind of knowing all of that, it's definitely hard to process. But right now we've done all the testing that we can, as much as we can, because our insurance currently doesn't have coverage for infertility treatments. So we've gone as far as we can with testing and everything, and now we're waiting for January next month, to where when I get my cycle next month, I'm able to call the nurses and they can set me up on the prep cycle, which will
yeah,
be birth control, and they'll have me on birth control for a couple weeks to make sure my getting my system ready to go and all of that, and then when they're ready to start me on the my first cycle with all of the
yeah,
medications and everything like that, making sure we have time to sign everything and get the meds and all of that stuff. So hoping that it will be earlier in January. It's hard. It definitely be hard because we originally thought we could start the prep cycle this month. But when I spoke to the nurses, they went through the whole thing of like, once we start that, they send in paperwork and everything that day to get things started. And
yeah,
because of our insurance plan, they can't do that. So we have to wait until January. Um, but it's also hard kind of also waiting for my cycle, because once I started taking the CoQ10, and I was starting to take DHEA for a little bit to kind of help with um, my eggs and everything, it wasn't seeming to do well with me or react well to me, so I stopped taking it. But when I was taking it, I could tell like it was affecting my cycle and everything.
Yeah.
So I had another well, now I don't think it was my
Yeah.
cycle, but it came again shortly after. So it kind of changed things up a little bit. So I had it twice in 1 month. And I'm like, okay, so what is my timeline here? What am I expecting? Like, when can I expect this going into next month? So
Yeah.
almost a week and a half ago now, I had my cycle for this month. So I'm hoping that means that come January, it will be early January that we can start the prep cycle, but it's a matter of
Yeah.
waiting. And when it comes to POI, it makes me really worried, because I'm like, what if things aren't working and I don't get my cycle this month for some reason, because that's what happens with POI.
Yeah.
And so I have
It's
this like
true.
little thought in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I know now that I'm getting regulated, this should be relatively about a month. But knowing that there could be a change, like it's hard knowing that you have to wait and there's still that, like, you're unsure. It's definitely hard. But I have been grateful to have found this community when I had first started. I think I was saying this before, where I decided to create this account because I realized I needed to be able to share and talk about what's going on with not only my um, fertility journey, my IVF journey, but what's going on with me and my POI. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of how this account got created, because I didn't want to do that on my own personal page,
Yes.
because I'm not ready to be that open with everyone else in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also the fact of like, I don't think a lot of people on that end would need to see all that or want to see all that.
Yes.
That's not what they
Yes.
signed up for and all that stuff. So I created this account to find those who are going through similar journeys and those who I can connect with and learn more. And that's kind of where I found you. You were one of the first few pages I came across. And I was so grateful to have found your page, honestly, because it helped me realize, I'm like, okay, I am not alone. There's lots of other people going through this,
Yeah.
and they understand. Um, so it's definitely been a roller coaster,
Yeah.
because when I first got diagnosed to pretty much now, like when I last saw my doctor who put me on the HRT, she's like, you've pretty much, like, since you started, been on this fast train of like, all right, you're diagnosed, you put on HRT, now you're going to get your
So,
testing, you're doing IVF, like you're like, you need a moment to kind of like process everything. So I'm kind of
it's
grateful. Like,
true.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful but not grateful that like we had to wait this extra time to start IVF, because I think it allowed us time to, mostly me, process
Yeah.
everything. My husband, on the other hand, he's like, yep, this is what it is. Okay, all right, now we're just waiting. Like, he's more like ready to go. Where I'm like, there's so much to process, but I
That's
think
so much
it
going
also
on.
is
Yeah.
because I'm the one going through so much, especially like emotionally and mentally, trying to deal with everything what's going on with
Yeah.
my own body, and coming to terms with that, the fact of like my body's not doing what it's supposed to. What you would feel like would be like my ovaries aren't doing what they're supposed to. I'm not. It almost feels like you're not a woman,
Yes.
almost, per
I
se.
know. It's,
Like
yeah. I think a
womanly
lot of the
enough.
time it's like society and culturally as well, where it's like, for you
They
to
put
be
those
a
together.
woman, you have to carry a child, have a baby, and if you
Right.
can't do that, you feel like, okay, if I can't do that, then what am I? Does that make me less of a woman? But I think that's not
Right.
the, and that's how I felt for like a long time, like, especially like pressure from like, family and what you feel like, okay, like you can't, and sometimes when you explain to them like what you're going through, they don't intend, a lot of people don't intend to understand. They can relate, but they can never like truly understand like
Right.
what you're going through. That's how I see it. You can relate to me, but you
Right.
can never truly understand like what you go through on a daily basis.
Right.
You know what I mean? And for me, when it comes to like infertility and having kids and stuff, my decision that I have made for me so far in life is like, for me, I'm going to go to the route of adoption, because that's a decision that I have made for myself.
Right.
And, And the fact is, I know there's like a 5 to 10% chance. And I'm, like you said earlier, you want to try to see if you can do it. And at least, you try. And if it doesn't
Right.
work, you're going to go through a different route that works for you. And I
Right.
feel like every decision a woman makes for themselves in terms of like how they choose to have choice with children, people need to respect that. So for me,
Right.
adoption is going to be the only way. I intend to go through adoption because I don't want to, the way I see it is that the way I see it is like I don't want to take the chance of actually, trying to see if I can actually carry a child or not, because the way I look at it, that we don't know what the effect of it is going to be later on down the road. So I rather go through a path for me. And there's a lot of children out there who needs like to be cared for, and they need to be loved.
Right.
And so that's what I'm going to, that's a path for me that I'm going to choose, and everybody's path is completely different, so which makes it great as well too.
Right.
And the other thing I was going to say as well is in terms of HRT, like for me, I was going to ask you, how did you adjust to HRT? How did you find HRT? What was kind of like the side effect you got from like taking HRT? Was there, if there was any, with you? Because I know you said earlier that you never got hot flashes, like you
I
didn't get
didn't.
any
I
hot
don't feel like I
flashes.
got really like any
Yeah,
major hot flashes. I
yeah,
feel like there were ones where like I would get really really hot, but I don't think it was to the point where like I would consider it a hot flash.
yeah,
At least, so I was very grateful for that at that
yeah,
point when learning all these symptoms. I was like, oh my goodness, like there's so much that comes in with it.
yeah.
With when it came to HRT when it started, I noticed a difference like when it came with the energy and the dryness and the irritability and just painful trying to have intercourse pretty much. And then just, I'm missing something here. Sorry.
Acheness, the body acheness as well. Like, let's not forget about the body acheness. I'm sure you get that. Like,
Yeah,
feel like your
yeah,
body is just aching. Yeah,
yeah. I feel like that sometimes too, and I feel weird and like I'm just sitting here like I'm like this doesn't seem right. Like this shouldn't be what it is. Like
mm,
it's definitely weird. But it definitely helped with like the dryness, the irritability, even the libido. Like there were
yes,
points when I'm like, you have such a low libido when you're coming with POI because symptoms.
it's
My
okay.
apologies. That's my
Your
dog
dog,
because
your dog
my
wants to
mother,
join the conversation.
um, my mom's here now,
Okay.
so she got really excited. Um, but so it definitely helped in that sense. But I feel like when it comes to like weight, I feel like it's affected me because now that it's trying to kind of get my hormones in order and kind of get
Mhm.
everything situated. I feel that's quite affected me, and like with how I'm eating, I don't want to say how I'm eating, but like I'll notice I'm snacking more, doing more things, and it's just like I've noticed
Yes.
a bit of a change there that
Yeah.
it's hard because now I'm trying to get back into control of it. I'm like, okay, what are the pieces that I can do? Because you notice that change and then you just feel uncomfortable with yourself. You're like, this is not where I feel good at. And just in general, like your body just feels like, I don't know what that
It's
like
still kind of
crap.
out of sort. Yeah. For me personally, it's
You
like,
do yourself.
yeah, you just don't feel. So for me personally, with HRT, when I first started HRT, like breast tenderness was one of the things that I was like, what is going on? Like I was always so like, even in public, wearing some certain outfits, I have to be very protective on my breast area because it was so
Right.
sensitive. I couldn't lie down a certain way because of the breast tenderness. And I also noticed for me as well, like I didn't gain weight, but I started gaining weight around my midsection. Like my
Yeah.
midsection started getting big. I was like,
Yeah.
what's going on? I'm
Yeah.
not getting weight in the other part, but my stomach is getting bigger. And also, like, the other thing for me was also my skin reaction. I noticed I started getting like acne. I still
I
do
feel
get that.
like I've
Yeah,
been noticing small, like not a whole lot, but there'll be
yeah,
times where I'm looking and like I'm seeing these smaller pieces where I was never really someone who had a lot of acne or anything
yeah,
like that. So I'll be noticing certain things. I'm like, I feel like I'm getting a lot of like under the skin and stuff, and I'm like,
yeah.
this has got to be connected here.
Yeah, it is connected. So for me, acne, and I know I had a lot of other symptoms, but it's just what I can remember right now. So I think one of the things I still suffer with right today is the breast tenderness. Well, I've always, but it's not as severe as it was with the other like HRT. It's actually gotten better, and I've kind of learned how to kind of manage and do a certain things to kind of ease the pain and whatnot. So and for me, when I first started HRT, when I went online and Google like HRT, a lot of the things that came up for me that I was scared of was HRT leads to breast cancer, breast cancer, breast cancer.
Right,
So it
right.
was just like breast cancer, breast cancer. I was like, what is going on? And I feel like that's one of the things that's just out there. Any article you read, anything you see, even on Google, is breast cancer.
Yeah.
So that's what really scared me
It scares
initially. But
you, yeah.
yeah, as I started reading more into it, articles and stuff, I noticed that it's not always the case because I have POI, my body is lacking estrogen and
Right.
progesterone. Estrogen is very important, so that's what we have to take
Right.
HRT, because if we don't, it's of course it's going to cause, it's going to lead to a lot more dangerous stuff. And also
Right.
progesterone, yeah, because I still have a uterus. So I've learned along the way like the benefit of HRT for me, and as well too. So and I was going to add something else. We talked about memory as well. How one of the things that actually
Yeah.
affects um, women with POI is memory loss. How you like for me, like I was saying, I could just be talking to somebody. I'm very bad with names. Like, I cannot remember people's names,
Right.
and I could be having a conversation midway, and I just forget what I was saying, and I go blank. Or sometimes
Right.
one
Right.
of the
No,
things
I
that happens to
completely,
me,
I
yeah,
feel that quite a bit. Yeah.
you
And
just go
it's
blank. And you're
frustrating.
like, you're trying to recollect what you just said or what you said to somebody or someone has said to you. You go, and then you start to wonder what is going on with me. And I
Right.
think that really does scare me, because I start to think, what about as I'm getting older? Does that mean my mind is
Right.
just going to become blank? I'm just going to forget everything then. But
Right.
yeah,
It's
it's
scary
it's
thought.
really it is really how has that affected you a lot in terms of memory loss?
I feel like there will be little things that will
Yeah,
get to me, or like I think I mentioned in the previous video where like I
yeah,
would be in one room and I'd be talking to my husband, I'd ask him something, and then I'd walk away and I'd go do something else, and I'd come back a little bit later and be like, I know I asked you this. I remember
yeah,
asking you, but I have no idea the recollection of what you said in response.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm like, I need you to repeat or tell me what you told me because I have no
yeah,
idea. And it's not because I asked you and then I was ignoring you or something, but I'm like,
yeah,
I physically remember, like mentally remember asking you, but do not remember the response. And it makes
yes.
you so frustrated because you're like, I wasn't ignoring you. I'm not just trying to create a problem here. Like I genuinely need to know the answer because I don't know. And you get so frustrated
Yeah.
at your brain.
It is. And I feel like sometimes as well, especially I think for me, friends, people like close friends have come to understand. So, but with strangers and new people that don't really understand, and you're really trying so hard to kind of like remember what they say. You at the same time you're just like, I can't remember. So can you just explain yourself to me again? And sometimes I
Right.
just like what I normally just say is like, look, I have a very short-term memory, so I don't remember. So sometimes you might have to repeat yourself more than once. And I can just you leave it there as well too. And I was going to add something else, but I'm going blank now. I was
Prime
going to say
example.
something.
I had
I'm
that the other day when I was with my kids, and I was so I'm a special education teacher for those who don't know. And right now
yeah,
my district is we're virtual. And the other day I was teaching one of my like small groups, and I
yeah,
was going over something, and it was a word or two that we were explaining. I was talking about, and then I was trying to like, okay, we were just talking about, and I'm like, what's the word? What's the word I'm trying to call? What's the word I was just explaining to you? And it couldn't like it took me quite a bit, and then so finally we just went past it and continued, and then a few minutes later I'm like, oh, that was it, and my kids just kind of laugh because they're like that I went back onto the first thing,
like two
but
minutes later.
it was irritating. So I'm like, this small little thing that I can't remember now, like it's at the tip of my tongue. And especially like when it comes to my myself and my husband and like his family, we are big like board game people. We love playing games. And when it comes
Yeah,
to trivia, I am horrible when it comes to trivia because like I can't remember all these different things. And
yeah,
I feel like it's more than just like the normal person, like they can't remember all these silly facts, but like there'll be lots of names or
yes,
like who was in this or who played that or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I know their face, but I
yeah,
cannot remember their names. I can't. Like I feel ridiculous sometimes when we're going to play some of these trivia games because I feel helpless. I'm like, I can't help you on your team. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like there'll be little things I can help you with, but you're pretty much carrying this team right now.
Uh, so yeah, does anybody have any questions? Let's just make sure there's no questions there.
Oh,
If
yes.
anybody have any questions, just put the question in and then we
Yeah,
can.
feel free to ask
I
any
know
questions you have.
I know someone asked initially on the last video before we lost everything, which was crazy, that what were some of your symptoms? I think they were asking some of the symptoms. What was the question again? They asked what other
I don't know
symptoms
if
do
it
you
was
have in terms
what
of
other
POI? Yeah,
symptoms of POI,
yeah,
or if they were asking in general what are symptoms of POI. I wasn't sure if it
yeah,
was like specific to one of us or just in general.
yeah. I think for me, what I would say is that one of the things for me, I would say, if it's in terms of POI before being diagnosed, it's of course irregular period. Like I said, I had irregular periods for 4 years, for 3 years, going to 4 years, and of course that was like one of the big major thing. And mood, I was very moody as well too. Like I was a very moody child, but I didn't link it with POI then. And what else would I say? I think for me, the major thing was the irregular periods for sure. And in terms of like HRT, some of the like HRT was breast tenderness, acne, what else? I think I still had mood swing. Even on HRT, I still do suffer from mood swing on HRT. I think it's probably just reduced compared to before.
Right, right,
Although I still do have my moments where I'm like, but you have to kind of find ways to kind of like
right,
set yourself in a different kind of mood and just to kind of like lift yourself up.
right.
So, and what would you say are some of like your symptoms from, I think you spoke about them before, but just to kind of
Yeah.
yeah,
So for me, though, the biggest ones that stood out the most,
yeah,
especially like after being diagnosed and realizing that all of these were connected, was like
yeah,
like I mentioned, like low libido, or painfulness when you're trying to have that moment with your partner, and then the dryness. Those were I think three big things that I realized were connected and changed once I started HRT. But now, as we like the more research I've done, and like as we've been talking, like I feel like probably memory has been probably another piece of it, like,
yeah,
and difficulty concentrating. I don't feel like I've really had to deal with like the hot flashes so much. Like there are moments where I
yeah,
get really like warm or really hot, but not to the extent of where I feel like I would classify it as the hot flash. So like I feel like
yeah,
I'm lucky in that sense, but then I feel I'm like, well, if POI, do you have all of these symptoms, or should you be having all of these symptoms? Like, but so that like trying to figure that out too, still trying to
yeah,
do my own research and doing enough of like trying to figure out what's connected and what's not, and then also your fertility is a huge
for sure.
symptoms, because when it comes to POI, your ovaries aren't doing what they're supposed to, so you're not consistently ovulating, and you could spontaneously ovulate, so that um, connects to your like infertility, can cause
Yeah,
infertility, which is a huge thing when it comes to
it
POI, and it's
is.
definitely a hard thing to process,
Yeah,
especially when you're trying to go through all of that and knowing that like the chances are so low on top of
yeah,
that. So it's definitely been interesting with starting all of that and knowing that
yeah.
okay, no matter what, we're gonna have to do IVF, and
And
it's
just talking
definitely
about like infertility as well. Like we know that infertility is like a huge part of it, but also just knowing as well too, like it also affects like our physical and emotional health as well too. Like that's
yeah,
like a major part. Like I feel like I took advantage. Like maybe I wasn't well aware of for a long time how like it greatly like affects you. So that's also a very big part as well. I feel like they both should be treated equally as well. To as
yeah,
much as you face your
sure,
infertility, you should also look after your mental health as well too, and your physical health and things like that, just to kind of make them equal. And when you spoke about your side effects, for me, when you talked about not having hot flashes, for me, hot flashes was one of my main things as well too. I just
that's
remembered.
hard.
And I still do suffer from hot flashes. I could just be sitting down doing my work, and next thing I just get this hit just come right run down. It feels as if like I'm sweating. I have to run to the window and just open the window. So I still do get hot flashes, but not as often, I would say, in the past as well too.
Okay,
And and it's
good.
just like, yeah, so which is good. It actually has it's like HRT has actually, like, helped a lot and improved a lot. Recently I was looking through my blood work from the past and the present, because I recently, last this year, I went for my blood work on HRT, and I noticed how my FSH and LSH has actually, like, decreased over the years. Like,
Okay.
yeah, when I was diagnosed, my FSH was like 117, and my
Mine,
LH
I'm
was like,
trying to remember, I think
yeah,
mine was
yeah,
80 when
80.
I was first diagnosed.
Yeah,
And when they went through and trying to explaining what that all meant, it was just like, I think it was put into the postmenopausal range. And like
yes,
hearing in those terms, your brain just goes, I'm sorry, what? Like you're hearing the word menopause
yeah.
and you're just like, I'm sorry, I'm not even 30 yet. Like what?
What are you talking about? So think that someone as young as 12 can actually go through menopause, to me was just
Yeah,
bizarre. I was like, what? That actually, and it does. It's just, that's why, like you said, one of the reasons I decided to create my space, Blossom Living the PY, is because, for years I was the type of person, I never wanted to talk about it. Like, I didn't talk about it, I didn't acknowledge it, and I think I suffered. I learned the hard way emotionally, because I didn't want to even acknowledge what was going on. I just kind of locked it at the back of my mind, and I threw away the key. So as I started to grow older, I was like, okay, and I started to kind of learn more about POI, HRT, and how it affects you and everything. And I wanted to create a space where I know that I'm not alone. That there are other people out there
yeah,
who's actually experiencing the same thing, and I want to be able to share my own experience as well too, and create a space whereby where you feel like a woman. Like, if you can't have carry your own child, it doesn't make you less of a woman. If you have
right,
infertility issue, it doesn't make you less of a woman. That's just society and culture, trying to put you in a
yeah,
box. But
right,
yeah,
right,
that's not the case. Every woman is unique and different in their own way, and there are many ways. If you don't want to have child, if you want to be childless, that's your choice. If you want to have a child, that's your choice. If you want to go do to IVF, donor egg,
right,
that's also your choice. You should never be, because I see a lot of the time when I look at posts and things that I follow, where women are being kind of like, they're being condemned because of their choice on how they
right.
choose to have kids, or or they choose not to have kids, or they're going through infertility. So I can use my example, for me, as an example, like, from where my cultural background as well too. When I talk about infertility, it's like, oh, don't you worry, you'll be okay, you'll be able to have kids. I know someone that
Yeah,
had infertility for like 20 years, and they were able to have a miracle baby. I was like, great. It doesn't mean I don't believe in that, but I still am going through infertility, and it's different for
right,
me. They have to understand, like, it's different for me the way it's different for you, and it's going
right,
to affect each person, differently.
right.
So yeah, so having a platform out there, network, to be able to educate yourself, and just kind of know that you're not alone, you have other people. It's been really great. It's helped me, like, a lot, and I'm really, like, grateful for that. So is there anything
Yeah.
else? And nobody has any
Um,
question? No. Is there
I
anything
don't
else
see
you'd like to
anything
add?
Anthony. And that's kind of what I had mentioned prior to, like, kind of
Yeah,
why I created my page as well, to find those who I could connect with who are going
yeah,
through similar journeys, whether it's POI or infertility or IVF, to find those I could connect with and to help feel others not feel alone,
yeah,
and also a way for me to process everything, because I realized I needed a way to be open and to talk
yes,
about it, but I wasn't ready to do that with everyone else in my life. So I created a separate page,
yes,
and it allowed me to kind of talk and connect. And I realized when I was diagnosed with POI, it took me a little bit to kind of like wrap my head around it and everything. But I feel
yeah,
like I don't want to say I didn't have a choice, but like I kind of didn't have a choice in the sense of like I have to embrace it, I have to take it in and wrap my brain around it, because we are on this journey of trying to build a family. So I have to take that in as a piece that's affecting it. So I don't have the space to ignore it right now because of the journey that we're on, where I have to go
yeah,
in, I have to figure out how to process it, how to manage my emotions, and realize that there will be times where I'm just going to be filled with just all sorts of emotions because something's gonna hit me and realize I'm like, I feel sad that I can't go through, I can't do this naturally, where I have to go through IVF, which isn't a bad thing. Like you said, everyone's on their
Yeah.
own journey. But you,
Yes,
as
exactly.
you had said, society also kind of like makes you feel like you need to be put in a box, and then you get all
Yes.
this guilt, and you're trying to remind yourself, like, I don't need to have this guilt. Like, I know I'm trying to build a family. However, we have our family, it's going to be our family. But it's definitely a lot to process, and
Yeah.
especially when you are going through that, and you said you're going through adoption, and I'm just doing the IVF. It's hard, especially when you're putting those moments where, like, okay, I'm starting this journey, we're doing this, and now, like, especially with the pandemic and everything going
Yeah.
on, you see all these families or women like, oh, I'm pregnant, or I'm having my second, or whatever, and you're just like, everyone's starting to move on, and you feel like you're stuck, or you
Yeah.
feel like you're being kind of left behind almost. Where, like, I'm working on getting to that step. That's where you want
It's
to
just
be,
taking
but
longer. Yeah. Yeah.
right, and reminding yourself, like, eventually, I'm gonna get to that step. I just have to move a couple more mountains out of the way to get there,
Mhm.
and
And
it's just a lot.
And I feel like it's important, like we said earlier, it's important to, when you have like on social, especially on social media, if you're following a lot of pages like that where you see people are getting pregnant, and like I had to really like do a lot of filter on my personal page where I'm very careful who I follow and stuff. So I'm not, in terms of posts and stuff, setting my like alarms, what do you call them? Post notification, so so I know, like, so that you're not overwhelmed by all this. And because when you're overwhelmed, it really has you like thinking like, oh, people are just getting really pregnant easily, what about me? Because you don't really know what that other person is going through either.
Right,
So,
right,
and I feel like it's very important to kind of take care of yourself that way. And like you said, for me, adoption is what I see in the future for me as well too. So I'm not really in that process at the moment, but it's kind of where how I want to bring a child into the world in the future by adoption and bringing someone. So that's what I intend to do. So whatever path you choose, I feel like it's okay. Do not allow society. It's hard sometimes, but do not allow
right,
society or culturally for anyone to pressure you or make you feel a certain way about yourself because you cannot bear a child naturally. Because again,
right,
time have changed. Things are different now. We don't have to go the common way anymore. It's different.
right.
So it's don't, yeah. So that's what I have to say about that. And also, one other thing I'll say about POI from what I've learned is, I think I've talked about this also as well in my YouTube channel, is that if you can have someone with you when you at the process where you're being diagnosed, if you can actually have someone with you go along with you through that process, it's great. Because for me, I didn't have anybody. I had to go through the process of everything by myself, and it was emotionally draining. Like it was crazy. I remember the first time I got diagnosed, I cried. Like I had to take a taxi home because if I would have taken the public transport, I probably would have ended up somewhere that, because of that
Yeah,
emotion. I was just, so having someone with you along the way, helping you, that you can rely on, you can talk to, it's also a really like great idea to have along with you. And just, kind of having someone with you where you can call and talk to when you are going through hard times as well, or finding ways as well. I feel like also, for one other thing I've learned in terms of mental health is, how important mental health is as well with POI, because for me, speaking from experience, is I think I didn't pay much attention to my mental health for a long time, and that really affected me greatly. So
yeah,
I've learned now that mental health is important. So my mental health goes above anything else.
yeah,
If anything else has to go on underneath it, if it has to go, it's a no-no. Mental health for me comes first because it's
right,
really important just as much as the infertility as well too. So
right.
yeah, is it?
One thing that got
Yeah,
me thinking, when it comes in terms of like HRT, hormone replacement therapy, not
yeah,
only um, do they want us on it because it helps with the current symptoms going on, but because of the lack of estrogen and everything else going on, that it has complications for osteoporosis in the future. And
yeah.
thinking about
It's a
that
good
being a
one.
possibility where, like, if I don't take this, I will most likely have dealing with osteoporosis and
Yeah,
stuff, or even heart disease, because of you're not having enough estrogen, and like
your
thinking about
bones,
that
your
kind of
bones. Yeah,
frightening, and knowing, okay, I'm
yeah,
doing what I need to do to make sure I'm giving my body what it needs right now. So in the
Exactly.
future, I'm not having to go through extra. And I don't think
Exactly.
a lot of
That's
people
yeah,
realize
yeah,
that
yeah.
all of that connects as well. Because I
Yeah.
didn't realize that when my doctor was talking to me about hormone replacement therapy, because I was kind of debating on like, well, is it a big deal right now or whatever? And she's like, well, when you're doing this, it will help you also prevent osteoporosis because of the lack of estrogen and all of that. And it was connecting those pieces. I was like, oh my goodness, like this is something that I'm really going to have to be on until my body would normally go through menopause,
Yes, yes.
probably around 50. And knowing that's going to be the case, and it's hard to process all of that too, and knowing like
Yes.
it's not
Yeah.
just affecting you right now, but like your whole life. And it's definitely
It's
a lot to
yeah.
process.
I agree.
There,
I agree with you on that because thinking that you have to be on HRT to like actual age of menopause,
right,
it's a long journey. It's very, very long. And it's
yeah,
just you start to think then, okay, what about when I get to the actual age of menopause? What's gonna happen then? And this and that
right,
and that and that. It's just so
right.
much you have to think about. And there's something else I wanted to say as well. I'm blanking out as well. But there's a question. Say, have you ever felt worse on HRT than off it? For me personally, I've not been off HRT since I've been on HRT, but I cannot actually imagine my life without HRT because I remember how I felt before I went on HRT. I feel like HRT definitely improved some of my symptoms that I was experiencing. So and especially like she said already, in terms of your bone density as well too. And
Right.
if not being on HRT to improve it because you need that estrogen, my bones as well. Your bones could be greatly affected. So for me, I can't really compare not being on HRT and being off HRT because I feel HRT has actually helped me along the way a lot compared to when I was not on HRT. What about you, Nicole? What do you?
Since being on it, I feel like it's helped me a lot more. Aside from dealing with a little bit of that like weight gain a little bit, as we were both talking about, kind of
Yes.
especially in our midsection area. But I feel better being on it because it's helping those specific things, especially with my mental health and my
Yeah.
energy and the dryness, the painfulness. And even the libido. But I feel
Yes.
like I have seen in some spaces where people were talking about POI and their HRT, where trying to find the right HRT for them, where they were on one and it didn't suit them, and they could feel like it wasn't helping.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to talk with your doctor to figure out what is going to be the right thing for you. And I feel like right now with the estradiol and the progesterone that I'm taking 12 days out of the month, is what's working for me and working really well. So I haven't felt like I felt worse, aside from when I was adding in other supplements to help with my egg quality that kind of like, I think kind of threw everything else up, where my body's like, you're already trying to fix things. Now what are you doing?
Trying to do. Yeah, to add to that as well too, I think for me, one of the things that really had me question HRT was when I started getting like full body twitching. Like I really, well, especially when I switched over to the Femistone 2x10, I noticed that I started twitching a lot. And initially I used to think, okay, it was related to thyroid issues. But I've also learned as well some of it, and although like I've heard from a lot of people saying that there's actually no proof or study to show that too much estrogen can cause twitching. But I've actually come across a few articles that says like a lot of estrogen can cause twitching. So that's one of the things I've noticed. I've been constantly twitching. So that was one of the other reasons I went back on HRT 1x5 because I thought maybe the dose was too high for me. And the only time I've actually felt worse on HRT, like I said, it's the side effects on HRT. I think that's one of the major things as well too. Some people have it worse than other. Like for me, mine is mostly the breast tenderness. That's what I suffer from a lot. Breast tenderness. It's for me. It's very painful, and yeah, I would say that I don't know. No, that's pretty much it for me. I know there's probably a lot more, but when you're blank right now, you don't know where else.
Right. Right.
But yeah. So. I hope that answers the
Sorry.
question, Rachel. Bless you. Bless
Sorry.
you. That's fine. Bless you. Yeah.
I was thinking about the fact too of like when I first got diagnosed too, they my doctors were kind of going through my medical history and seeing if like any of my family members had gone through menopause early or if there was any like connection genetically, because a lot of times they don't know, it's an unknown cause of what's happening, which is kind of scary to think about. But we had to go through our whole like they're asking all these questions like, okay, anyone on your family side, do you know if they did X, Y, and Z or got things, like if their period came late or anything like that? And I'm like, a lot of things no one really talks about a whole lot.
No.
We've been talking about with society. It's like one of those things that just don't get talked about, because I feel like if I would have known a lot more about these different things with my periods and stuff like that, like I feel like I would have probably talked to my doctor sooner and be like, hey, I know this isn't normal, but because so many things aren't talked about, I just didn't think too much of it because I'm like, no one said it wasn't normal.
Exactly. It's true. And yeah, I definitely agree with you on that because it's like, especially when you actually do talk to someone who's the adult about your period and they're like, it's okay. You don't have to
Right.
worry about it. So you kind of just kind of go about because you think it's okay because they know better
Right.
than you. So it's crazy because that's because they are not well informed either. So they
Right.
also don't know either way to know that it's not normal to have a period, not to have a period for 2 3 years. So it's definitely not normal. And there was I was going to ask something else to Rachel question. I know that I've spoken to like a few like women like where they actually don't like being on HRT because I know that some women actually have like worse symptoms being on HRT and they rather not be on HRT, at all. They rather just, go through like the natural route or something like that. I think one of the things that they came back and they noticed that they regret is because along the way of not being on HRT, they noticed that, their bones probably like their bones got worse, it got really fragile and very sore, or maybe their memory loss got really, really bad. And now they are not back on HRT because they didn't understand how important
Right.
HRT is and how important that estrogen is that you actually do need it. So I feel like that needs to be made clear before you tell someone, okay, we're gonna put you on HRT. They need to understand, how
Right.
important HRT is and what HRT contains and how important those two elements is if it's required for that patient. So I feel like that
Right.
needs to be made important to people because if they know how important it is from the get-go, that will allow them to make the decision. And also being that when you go online and search HRT, a lot of the things you see first is breast cancer. There needs to be a resources whereby the doctors or the gyno actually do give you resources and things that you can actually read, and how important HRT is. And instead of just seeing the first thing as being breast cancer, because that's going to scare you off, because that scared me off
Right.
the first time. So I feel that is important. That's also important for that's important information for patients to be able to have as well to help to educate them as well as being informed about POI and symptoms of POI, how you can get diagnosed with POI and things like that. I've been getting really bad side effects. I'm still trying to find the right one, but it's really, yeah, I can relate with that. Definitely relate with that because like I said in the beginning, I was on the patch and then I went on the Femistil 1/5, and then I went to the Femistil 2/10 because I'm still trying to find the balance. I'm still trying to find the right HRT for me. But I think at this stage, I'm going to because I spoke to a doctor a while ago, and I we kind of agreed that at this stage I'll remain on the Femistil 1/5. And then there's kind of any like a lot of if it's like minor symptoms that I can actually maybe deal with myself, like hot flashes and things like that, it's okay as long as I'm getting enough estrogens and things like that. That's actually important. So that's kind of like my that's kind of like my own experience right now. But I definitely do relate. It is difficult. Like it's very difficult to find the right balance, and side effects are just yeah, side effects are not so good.
One thing I
I don't
also
know.
found in
Yeah.
relation, kind of correlated with that, along with like creating this page, I'm with Facebook, when it came to it, when I was diagnosed right away, I went and I discovered a few groups on Facebook that were related to POI, and it's been really nice being able to be part of that community because there are so many questions always being asked or so
Yeah.
many just stories being shared where you're wondering those things or you have questions, and a lot of them have either experience or knowledge and things like that where they can help you out, or you're looking at like, oh, I didn't think about that. I should ask my doctor that question because of
Yeah.
X, Y, Z. So finding a group like that can also be super helpful if you're on Facebook, because
Yeah.
I don't share much in it, but I'm able to always see, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that actually connected to my symptoms of POI. You know,
Yes. Yeah, I get what you mean. I definitely get because yeah, I get what you mean because there might be a question that you might not think to ask, and then someone has posted up, and you're like, oh yeah, I can ask that to my daughter. That's a good idea. So yeah, I don't think there's any more questions there. Is there anything else you would like to add today, Nicole? Anything else before we
I don't think so. I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the fact that we were able to do this. And for those of you who don't know, this is our first time actually like meeting.
Yes,
We talked like messaging on Instagram and everything, but this is our first time actually seeing each other face to face and kind of talking. So this has been
yes,
a really nice opportunity to kind of share about POI and everything else that comes with it, especially with the infertility journey, because it's
yeah.
definitely a lot to process.
Yeah. And I think like offline, we actually said that this is our first life. We're going to try and keep it very calming so that we're not so nervous and just like, so I
Yeah.
think we did a great job. So bravo to
Yeah.
us. And we did a great job. So guys, there's no more questions and there's nothing else like Nicole would like to add or myself. I think we're going to end the live there today. Like I was going to ask, what's one thing you can actually like maybe someone that's being diagnosed for the first time or that's going through like POI infertility, what's one thing you can like say to them?
Someone who's recently diagnosed, I would say make sure you are doing your research and finding a doctor who is going to listen to you and
Yes.
knows what's going on, and finding either somebody within your close family or friends that you can be able to talk to about this,
Yes.
or finding a community online, whether it's in a group on Facebook or on Instagram somewhere, finding somewhere where you can connect and being able to talk about it is going to be a huge thing, because this is something that you don't realize affects you so much. Because when I first got diagnosed, I didn't realize how much it affected me until a few days later, where all of a sudden it just kind of like came down. I'm like, oh my God, this has such a huge impact. And I was down and out for a little while because it was so emotionally draining. So finding someone that you can talk to and making sure you have a doctor who's listening and is knowledgeable about POI.
Yeah. Just one more. Did you ever do counseling? Did you go counseling for like to talk to somebody? Because I know a lot of did you?
When
Yeah, when you were
um,
diagnosed
so
with POI, yeah.
after I was diagnosed and we were referred to our reproductive endocrinologist, before we could get signed off to do any IVF stuff, he had us talk to the psychologist, I think a
Okay.
psychologist there, specifically in relation to donor eggs. And
Donor
so both
eggs.
me and
Okay.
my husband had to go and speak with a psychologist there, and going through all of that and making sure that like we were understanding what was going on. We were processing it. We were at a good stage where they felt comfortable that we could do the IVF, that, maybe they needed to do more counseling or things like that. But I do feel like that was definitely helpful, because she went over a lot of different things that you wouldn't normally think about, especially if you end up going the donor egg route. How are you going to be talking to your children in the future about that as well? Because that can play a huge part of it as well, and going through all of that stuff. So it's definitely helpful. And I've definitely considered looking into more counseling as well in the future, because I know it'll be very beneficial.
So for me, with someone who's been recently diagnosed with POI, what I would say is that it's gonna be like it's a difficult journey from the start. And I feel like you just have to kind of take your time to process what you're going through, because feel like a lot of the times when, don't jump straight into like the social media platform first, because when you do jump into, what I think is when you do jump into it, you see kind of people talking about it on how people
It
is
can be
kind of
overwhelming.
you can't get overwhelmed, be like, okay, maybe I should be feeling that way, maybe I should be, you can't get very overwhelmed. So take your time at your own pace to kind of process what you're going through. At the same time, like she said, do your research, into like the treatment you're taking, what POI is, how POI affects you, how
Right.
HR, like kind of get as much information as you can. I'm still learning along the way. And also look after your mental health, because I feel like mental health is very important. We don't
Yeah.
advocate mental health enough. And it's just as equally important as the infertility side of things, but mental health is very important. So look after your mental health, because that can actually, mental health covers your emotional health, your physical health as well too. That is actually, it's actually very, very important. So that's what I would say. And like, yeah, guys, just take your time and just give your time to process. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need someone, get someone around you that you can trust, that you can talk to.
Right.
You need to talk to someone who would not judge you or make you feel like, oh, you're talking too much, you're crying too much. Oh, get over it. You don't want
Right.
someone like that. Yeah, you want someone you
Right.
can actually talk to and just find ways for yourself to ease the pain, ways that you can, set yourself in the mood, or make yourself,
Right.
by playing music or whatever you need to do, just kind of
Right.
to get over it. And not to get over it, just kind of to help you, not get over it, it's kind of wrong word, just to kind of help you along the way.
To
So just,
process.
yeah. I feel like
And
just take your
yeah.
time. Yeah. No
And I
rush. Take your
think
time. Yeah.
knowing that it's okay to not know how to feel about it,
Yeah.
because I feel like there were points where I'm like, I don't even know how to feel, like how I should be feeling about this, how I
Yeah.
actually feel about it, where I had to take time to just kind of unpack and process
Yeah.
everything. Just
Yeah.
being in that state, knowing like it's okay not to know how to feel,
Yes,
not
it
to know
is
how to
okay.
respond.
Yeah, it's okay, definitely, pressure. So, guys, that's it for today. Nicole, thank you guys for joining
Thank
myself
you.
and Nicole. It was, I'm sure there's a lot of other things we probably did not. I hope we talked about everything. I'm sure there's a lot more, but
I feel
if
like we went
you
over a
have,
lot.
yeah, exactly. So this is something that, like, I'm sure Nicole and I would like to do more often. More often, just to kind
Yeah.
of get people to share their stories. So if you have any question for myself or Nicole, definitely feel free to leave a comment on this IGTV video. I'm going to post it later, or just DM Nicole or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer the question. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And Nicole, thank you so much for
Thank you. Oh,
joining us
sorry.
today.
Shut that down. Sorry. My mom
And
came over and gave me snacks.
snap! Oh, okay. What's that actually? What's
It's,
that?
this is a red vine.
Okay, you can just go
Yeah.
away and eat now. We're done. I know you're hungry. I'm gonna get something to eat now.
She walked up to me. I was trying to be very quiet. She's like, here you go.
Okay. All right, Nico. I'll talk to you later, okay?
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
hope I
everyone
don't
who
lost
joined
this
us.
video now. Please.
No, I hope not. I hope not. If not, we can always do it again.
Yeah, I'll be very careful. I'll talk to you later.
But
Bye.
thank you for all for
Bye.
you for
Bye.
joining.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Now we have to figure out how to end it.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna be very careful because I don't want to lose this. I'll cry. Okay.